Hello, and welcome to my critical review of Star Trek 2009. Written by the dynamic dunces, Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orsi. Directed by Michael Bay's protege, J.J. Abrams. Before we begin the review, let me give you some personal perspective first. I am a Trek fan, but I would not call myself a Trekkie. I have watched all the movies, the original series, Next Generation, and Voyager. Yes, I have not seen DS9 or Enterprise. Only episodes here and there, and I have not seen any new Trek on Paramount+. I have been fortunate to limit myself to Red Letter Media and Dave Cullen's reviews of the episodes only. I was at the San Diego Comic-Con when J.J. Abrams appeared, and announced he was directing. He then brought out Leonard Nimoy and introduced Zachary Quinto as nuSpock. Now being that we are here now, in a post-Disney Star Wars, it is well known that J.J. is a hack director, and a shitty writer. It is easy to say.
I don't know why you keep hiring that fucking guy.
However, back in the day, he always trended as a hot name for some reason, and was mostly known for TV. Specifically for Lost and Alias. Personally, I did see Lost, and the pilot, which JJ directed, which was decent. The show's first season was interesting, but then they had to explain what was going on, and I was out in the second season. When it came to Alias, I heard it was a really good show. I tried watching an episode in the middle of maybe the second or third season, and I could not finish it because it was absurdly bad. I also did see MI3, which I felt was nothing special. So when I heard he was attached to direct Star Trek, I was like,
I don't know why you keep hiring that fucking guy.
As I stated in the beginning, JJ is a protege of Michael Bay. Not Steven Spielberg. With him writing the script to Armageddon, he must have taken meticulous notes from Michael Bay, as JJ's set pieces resemble Bay far more than Spielberg. As for the dynamic dunces, I first noticed them from The Legend of Zorro. I watched The Mask of Zorro. I enjoyed it, even though it was a derivative of The Count of Monte Cristo. With Legend of Zorro, there is a reason why they did not make a third movie. The writing was pure horseshit. Previously, they wrote the Logan's Run derivative, The Island, as well as episodes for Alias. They got their start writing for Xena and Hercules. They also wrote MI3, and we all know the Mission Impossible franchise begins with MI4 Ghost Protocol. And then they were tapped to write Transformers for Michael Bay. I wonder who gave them that job.
Fucking hell.
So with a writing track record of The Island, The Legend of Zorro, MI3, and Transformers, do these dunces seem like the right fit for a Star Trek movie? No, they don't. But being cronies of JJ, he tapped them to write it, and this is what we got. So in summary, given what I felt of the talent the studio assembled, I expected a shitty movie. I did not watch it in the cinema. I did not rent it on DVD. However, some friends of mine did watch it, and said it was a good movie. I did share similar taste in movies as my friends, so I decided to give it a try, and the result was as I expected.
Shit, this is some fucked up repugnant shit.
Disappointed!
Curious to know what others thought about the movie, I visited the now defunct IMDb message boards, and found a plethora of dopes and dunces praising the movie's idiocy. So with all of that said, let us begin with a brief summary of the movie. The USS Kelvin receives a message from Starfleet to investigate a spatial anomaly. Through a singularity, the Romulan vessel, Rata emerges from the future. It destroys the Kelvin, and George Kirk dies heroically saving the crew. A rebellious James Kirk grows up without a father, and is met by Captain Christopher Pike recommending him to join Starfleet, and after a night to think about it, he joins. During this time on Vulcan, Spock grows up bullied by other Vulcan kids teasing him because he is only half Vulcan. He resolves this issue by going batshit crazy, pummeling one of the kids like a psycho goofed up on Adderall. Now older, Spock is granted admission to the Vulcan Science Academy, but declines the offer perceiving a slight from the ministers and recognizing his mother as human. Thus, he joins Starfleet instead. Kirk, in his third year as a cadet, Starfleet receives an emergency distress call from Vulcan. All hands are called to duty, including all cadets. Kirk, being on academic probation, is not assigned a vessel, but boards the Enterprise anyway. Hearing the description of the distress call, Kirk realizes it is similar to the anomaly the USS Kelvin encountered. As the fleet warp to Vulcan, Ensign Sulu fails to warp by leaving the parking brake on. In the meantime, Kirk is able to warn Captain Pike of the anomaly, stating that it is an ambush. As the Enterprise comes out of warp, they arrive seeing the entire fleet destroyed. Nero, the captain of the Narda, is about to fire upon the Enterprise, then recognizes the ship and cancels the order. He hails the Enterprise and asks the captain to come aboard alone, and a squad is formed to destroy the drill from boring a hole into Vulcan. Captain Pike names Spock acting captain and Kirk as acting XO before departing the Enterprise. Kirk, Sulu, and a red shirt form the attack squad and space jump onto the drill. After a skirmish on the drill, the Romulans shoot a drop of a substance known as red matter into the drilled hole, causing the planet to destabilize and begin to implode. Spock beams down trying to rescue as many Vulcans as possible, but fails to save his mother. With Pike captured, Nero tortures him in order to gain the defense codes to the Terran system. On the Enterprise, Spock uses a logical fallacy in order to deduce the Narda is from the future, and exposit the Narda being here has created an alternate timeline. Spock and Kirk verbally spar over a difference in course of action which results in Spock jettisoning Kirk off the ship. On the icy planet of Delta Vega, Kirk ends up being saved by Old Spock, who was captured by Nero previously and beamed down by him in order to watch his planet be destroyed. The two make their way back to a Federation outpost manned by Scotty and his assistant. Using a grounded shuttle's transporter, Old Spock beams Scotty and Kirk back on the Enterprise. Surprised to see Kirk back on the ship, Kirk riles Spock to the point of murderous rage, until his father walks by and calmly calls his name. Realizing he is unfit for command, Kirk now becomes acting captain of the Enterprise. They plan on getting aboard the Narda in order to rescue Captain Pike. In order to get aboard, they will use the rings of Saturn to hide their presence and beam aboard undetected. Once aboard, the Enterprise lose contact with them, and Kirk and Spock find Old Spock's ship unguarded and wide open. The ship recognizes Spock via facial recognition, even though Old Spock does not resemble his youthful self any longer. Kirk and Spock part, with Spock manning the jellyfish and Kirk remaining on the Narda to rescue Captain Pike. Kirk sneaks through the Narda, eventually finding Nero. With his phaser, he tells Nero to cease drilling and stand down, when a henchman rifle butts him in the face and his phaser is lost. The two get into a fist fight, and Kirk mimes being a heavy bag. Spock, using the jellyfish, manages to incapacitate the drill. Kirk, on the verge of death, is reprieved as Nero is told the jellyfish has been stolen and the drill has been destroyed. He leaves, leaving his armed henchmen to finish the job. On the bridge, Nero tells his crew to fire on Spock. Spock warps away and Nero pursues him. Instead of killing Kirk with the weapon he is carrying, the Romulan henchman decides to strangle Kirk to death, and Kirk manages to gain access to his disruptor and kill him instead. In an unknown region of space, Spock comes out of warp and the Narda as well. Spock plots a collision course and the Narda fires a full volley at him. The Enterprise warps in and fires on the incoming torpedoes, clearing Spock's collision course. Kirk, finding Captain Pike, beams out before the two ships collide as well as Spock. The red matter is ignited, and a singularity is creating, engulfing the Narda. Kirk hails the Narda asking if they need assistance, and Nero declines, so Kirk orders the Enterprise to open fire on the Narda. As they open fire, the Enterprise is caught in the singularity's gravitational pull. Giving full power, they are unable to escape. They eject the warp core and detonate it, allowing the blast to push them far enough away from the singularity's pull. Back on Earth, Spock meets his old self, and Old Spock says he will not do anything to repair the timeline. Starfleet is assembled to award now Captain Kirk a commendation, and to report to Enterprise to relieve now Admiral Pike. On the bridge, Spock comes aboard and recommends himself as first officer and Kirk accepts. This concludes the summary of Star Trek 2009. That is the overall story. I did leave out many details which we now get into. With that summarized outline, I do believe an actual good movie could have still been made. Actually, no. That outline is pure shit. And the movie still was greenlit by all of the producers, and the studio. Let me remind you that this is not a Fast and Furious installment, but rather Star Trek, and everybody gave it the green light.
In heaven's name, why?
Who knows? Before we begin the critique, let me state that there was a companion comic book called Countdown, that filled in some of the gaps that happened between the opening scene to the time Starfleet receives the emergency distress call, as well as some backstory. Of course, the movie should be able to stand on its Anunnaki, but I will address the movie's logic taking both into account. Also, let me address the lens flares. Yes, it is annoying. However, the shaky cam, pointless Dutch angle shots, and quick cut action editing I find far more annoying than the lens flares.
I don't know why you keep hiring that fucking guy.
With all that said, pour yourself a whiskey, and make it a double, because we are going to get into the details of the movie that will dazzle you with its raw stupidity. Issue 1. The Kelvin should be destroyed. Let us start at the very beginning. First, look at the size difference of these ships. It is about 10 times the size of the Kelvin roughly. Upon emerging from the singularity, this is what the navigator says on the bridge.
They've locked weapons on us!
What does that tell us? The Narada's weapons and targeting systems are undamaged and fully functional. What type of ship is the Kelvin? With only a single warp nacelle, it definitely is not a battle cruiser. It is more likely a science or research vessel. Yes, a research-class ship will have weapons, but nothing close in comparison to the Enterprise. Upon getting hit by the initial volley, the warp drive and weapons are offline, yet they continue to fire phaser shots, and the mains are 38%. After the second volley, shields continue to fail all the way down to 9% until the captain says to divert all power to the forward shields. After this volley, the Kelvin is hailed, telling us, the volleys were meant to incapacitate the Kelvin and not destroy it. With the captain going to the Narada, and then being killed, I assume about 10 to 20 minutes have elapsed, and a third volley is fired, this time meant to destroy the Kelvin. Apparently, in those 10 to 20 minutes, damaged crews have gotten weapons back online, firing at incoming torpedoes, supposedly. However, this is a volley to destroy the ship, rather than just a few torpedoes meant to incapacitate it. Given that we know how hellbent Nero is in killing everyone that pisses him off, why doesn't he just fire off another volley? And another, until the Kelvin is destroyed. Those actions are completely within his character. So obviously the Kelvin should be destroyed already, but it isn't. Why? Obviously to give Daddy Kirk a heroic death. I do not like using the term plot armor, but rather poor writing. This is the beginning of the movie, and the writers could create anything they want, and yet they write themselves into a corner within the first 5 minutes?
I don't know why you keep hiring that fucking guy.
Now, according to the prequel comic book, the Narada is from the future. Around 100 years at least, and their weapons are futuristic as well. So let me give you this analogy. A World War II class aircraft carrier. How many torpedoes does it take to sink it? Anywhere between 1 to 3 torpedoes will do the job. Around 40 years later, Tomahawk missiles were invented. A single Tomahawk could take out an aircraft carrier regardless of how much plating the hull had. In this case, the Narada was outfitted with modern photon torpedoes modified with Borg nanotechnology. Not Mark 6 Maui Jim photons from the original series, but at least Mark 25 photons from the next generation era modified with Borg tech, and it can't take out a rinky-dink research vessel 1/10 its size, and over 100 years old.
Get the fuck out of here!
That's right. 100 years of tech advances, and a ship, with its targeting systems online, and its advanced weaponry, cannot destroy a ship 1/10 the size of it after 3 volleys of torpedo barrages. None of this is even remotely plausible, and basically the movie presents us with an end-of-story moment within the first 5 minutes of the movie. If we are supposed to believe this ridiculous outcome at the very beginning of the movie, how much more horseshit are we forced to endure? At this point, I am sure some of you think I am nitpicking the details too much, or at the very least, being too critical on small details. I can agree to that to some degree, but from my perspective, the dynamic dunces have a complete blank slate to begin this movie however they want, and this is the best they can come up with. I find that effort to be extremely pathetic. Nevertheless, we have only just started pointing out the idiocy of this movie. Issue 2. There should have been no survivors. We do not have to wait very long for the next ridiculous issue to arise. Mother Kirk is aboard, and she is late in her 3rd trimester. That's right. She's fucking pregnant and going into labor. Being that she is in her 3rd trimester when the timeline was altered, means that the dynamic dunces believe that Starfleet active crew members in the prime timeline can still be on duty, while pregnant. Stupid much? But I digress. That is not the issue I am complaining about. Since the autopilot is offline, Daddy Kirk must manually pilot the Kelvin on its collision course, prohibiting him from evacuating the ship. The life pods eject from the Kelvin, and Daddy Kirk heroically saves them by crashing the ship into the Narada. Granted, something small crashing into something big can cause damage enough to disable some systems. However, from the movie, we know Nero is impulsive in his decision-making, looking to kill everyone representing the Federation, and of course this is all proven by him killing the captain. If he killed the captain without batting an eyelash, one would think he would finish the job, and kill the survivors just floating away. A single torpedo spread detonated in the path would kill them all. So if the collision damaged the ship to bring main power offline, the ship has auxiliary power. All ships have auxiliary power in order to keep life support systems online. And per Star Trek 2.
Laddering, sir! I can have auxiliary power in a few minutes!
We don't have a few minutes! Can you give me phaser power?
A few shots, sir!
Thus, from Star Trek canon, Nero should have enough power to fire off at least 1 torpedo, and the blast would destroy all of the life pods. Given Nero's actions in the movie, This is not only in line with his character, but also plausible in him ordering this very action. So, for the second time within the first 10 minutes of the movie, we get another end of story moment. Seriously, did the dynamic dunces pat each other on the back for writing this opening sequence? Seriously, everybody greenlit this draft?
I don't know why they keep hiring that fucking guy.
Issue 3. James Kirk is a douchebag. Around 10 to 15 years have passed, and we get our first glimpse of James Kirk. Even without growing up with a father, he apparently is still raised in Iowa. What are the chances? Anyway, we see the douchiest kid actor playing James Kirk, taking his uncle's antique Corvette out for a joy ride. Soon, a bike cop chases him and like an idiot after seeing a cliff, he accelerates towards it. At the last second, he skids to the side and jumps out of the car. Why? Why did he accelerate toward the cliff? What is the point of trashing the car? Who the fuck knows? Anyway, the cop asks his name, and Kirk, our fucking protagonist of the movie, says this.
My name is James Tiberius Kirk.
You little fucking cunt.
That's right. He includes his middle fucking name. His middle name is completely separate. Not a hyphenated name like Jean-Luc. What kind of fuck kid, whose family name means nothing, states his middle name? Only an absolute fucking pretentious douchebag would do that, and this is our introduction to our main character.
Absolute cunt.
Let me remind you that the Shat, in his entire career portraying James Kirk never. That's right. Never stated his middle name in introducing himself. He only stated his middle initial. Now you might say, Roddenberry and the writers never said his middle name, because he never had one until Trek 6. That might be true, and yet the writers back then knew if they gave him a middle name, and had him state it every time he introduced himself, it would have looked pretentious. I know this introduction is an attempt to show Kirk as being rebellious, especially growing up fatherless. That is understandable. Showing him being rebellious to authority is one thing, but being a reckless douchebag without giving us any context is piss-poor writing. He is a fuck kid because his mother is off-world, but he would be a choir boy when his mother is around. By his own actions, it shows his mother is a shitty parent.
You fucking child.
Issue 4. nuSpock is a douchebag too. That's right. Kirk, our main protagonist, is a douchebag, and Spock, our secondary protagonist, is also a douchebag.
God damn it!
As the movie states, Nero's presence into this timeline alters the future, but it only alters what he affected, such as the crew of the Kelvin, and the system in which he appeared. Of course he could have been doing other things from the time he appeared to the movie's present time, but we will discuss that in a later issue. Being that Nero entered nowhere near Vulcan, Spock's upbringing should be unaltered. However, it is. Look at this kid portraying a young Spock. Forgive me, but the kid looks like a fucking asshole with his pissed off expression. You might say his expression is the accumulation of him holding in the insults from the asshole bullies. Yet, Nimoy Spock would never portray his character like this. The reason why he was such an excellent Vulcan is because of his self-control, and besides, to be bullied because the asshole Vulcans are racist is not logical. Nimoy Spock would have pointed this out, and simply walked away having won the logical argument. However, in this version, we get Spock going batshit crazy, which actually proves the asshole bullies are right. How absolutely fucking stupid are these writers?
I don't know why they keep hiring that fucking guy.
Fast forward to when he's an adult, and look at that constant constipated expression on his face. Take some fucking Pepto-Bismol, you fucking douchebag. As we know, Vulcans do feel emotions, but choose to suppress it. This is based on the philosophical teachings of Serac. Anybody, and any race can follow and practice the teaching of Serac. Basically, one need not be Tibetan to be a monk. So being that Vulcans have and feel emotions just as humans do, and it was said that Vulcan emotions are felt even stronger than humans, per Serac in TNG, making it harder for them to suppress, it would actually be a benefit that Spock is half human, which would make it easier for him to suppress. Again, being that his upbringing should be very much the same as Nimoy Spock, why is this Spock petulant and smug? We already have a douchebag protagonist. Do we really need to have another one? His horrible character will be highlighted as we come across further issues with the movie. Issue 5. The Kobayashi Maru test is a test of fear.
Are you fucking joking?
As we know from Trek 2, the Kobayashi Maru simulation is a no-win scenario. Cadets take it and are judged on the choices they make. Do they attempt to rescue the ship, or do they mine the neutral zone borders? If they attempt a rescue, it is a violation of a Klingon and Federation treaty, and the cadet would put their ship and crew in potential danger. If they do not attempt a rescue, then the cadet is allowing all the souls on the Kobayashi Maru to perish. Thus, as Trek II states, it is a test of character. Apparently in the Kelvin timeline, not only is the test exactly the same, but it is now created by nuSpock. What are the fucking chances nuSpock creates an exact duplicate simulation? Also, according to him, the simulation's purpose is to experience fear. To experience fear in the face of certain death. To accept that fear and to maintain control of oneself and crew. Now, let me give you a moment to ponder on that notion of sheer idiocy.
You stupid fuck! Assholes!
In Trek II, it is said the Shat took the test 3 times. Apparently in this alternate timeline, Kirk, without a father, who joined Starfleet basically on a dare, manages to take the test 3 times as well. Seriously, what are the chances lightning strikes the same place multiple times all within a very short window? This is some shitty fucking writing.
I don't know why you keep hiring that fucking guy.
Now let me ask you, if you were taking a test that you knew another cadet took, would you ask him about it? Now, being that Kirk probably asked one if not multiple cadets that already took the test, obviously they did not die. According to nuSpock, it is a test of fear. Fear from certain death. How can one be fearful of death from a simulation? Are cadets warned that they can die from the simulation if they fail? Now being that Kirk took it 3 fucking times, if he did not die the first time, and the parameters of the test are exactly the same the second and third time, then pray tell, what the fuck does he have to be fearful about? This writing is unfathomably stupid. Now let us discuss both Kirk's third attempts. In Trek II, the Shat said he reprogrammed the simulation so the Kobayashi Maru could be rescued. It was a cheat, but his solution showed outside of the box thinking, and he was awarded a commendation for original thinking. When it comes to the details of the simulation itself, it is completely left for interpretation. In this version, we see how Kirk beats the scenario. Once again, lightning strikes the same spot once again. However, he does not rescue the ship, but rather, the program resolves itself. Basically, Kirk does nothing other than eat an apple like a douchebag. What's so stupid about this, is that it is an obvious cheat, and leaves out any true command prowess Kirk is supposed to have. We see none of it. It is a complete missed opportunity in developing his character. Instead, we get the petulant nuSpock throwing a hissy fit that his program was beaten. This crappy writing might work for crappy shows like Alias or Lost, but not for Trek. Issue 6. Pike assigns Kirk as acting first officer. Because Kirk cheated on the Kobayashi Maru simulation, he was put on academic probation. During his hearing, the emergency distress call from Vulcan is heard by Starfleet. All hands, including cadets, are to report to their assigned ships. Because Kirk is on academic probation, he is not assigned a ship. McCoy, in order to get him aboard the Enterprise, fakes an illness on Kirk to get him to sick bay. After a bunch of frenetic shaky cam and running around, he makes it to the bridge to warn Captain Pike. However, while all this slapstick Three Stooges bullshit is going on, Sulu fails to engage the warp drive, thus, the Enterprise does not warp to Vulcan along with the rest of the fleet. Personally, I think that is a nod to the stereotype of Asians can't drive, but I digress. However, this insignificant action ends up saving the Enterprise and crew. This delay allows Kirk to warn Pike that they will be ambushed when they arrive. Per Kirk's warning, they arrive with their shields up, saving them. Let me remind you, if Sulu warps in with the rest of fleet like he should have, it would have been an end of story moment. Instead, we get a cadet on academic probation, not assigned to be aboard the ship running around to warn the captain just in time. I know the saying, it is better to be lucky than good. Yet, in this case, it is due to sheer dumb luck that Sulu couldn't engage the warp engines like a normal helmsman. That's dumb racist luck. Anyway, back to my main issue. After sustaining heavy damage, Nero demands Pike to come aboard. As he leaves the Enterprise, he assigns Spock acting captain and Kirk acting first officer. Why? Kirk is on academic probation. He was not assigned to the Enterprise. Why isn't Pike assigning the next in command after Spock as first officer? The reason is because this has to happen. If Pike does not make this implausible action, it will be an end of story moment. We will eventually come back to this moment in other issues. Issue 7. The 25-year wait. When it comes to some of my previous issues, you might personally give them a pass and think I am being overly critical to the movie. Fair enough. However, with this issue, I find it objectively stupid and poor writing. After Nero realizes they are now in the past, instead of going back to Romulus and warning them of a future catastrophic event to their home world, Nero says they wait. That's right. Wait and do 2 things. Jack and shit and fucking all. We wait. Really? Wait and do nothing? Okay. Nero's pissed off at Spock, so he's going to wait. And the crew is going to wait with him? And do what, jerk off for 25 Earth years? But you might say the Romulans have longer lifespans. They can wait. As if living longer gives one the patience to wait. Anyway, crunching the numbers, if we took the life expectancy of a Romulan in regards to the 25 years, that would be equivalent of waiting 8 years for a human. Still, you'd want to waste 8 years of your life doing nothing and every single soul aboard the Narda is willing? How convenient. Mind you, this is not a military crew, thus less disciplined. They're in a different time now where they could go back to Romulus and still have a normal Romulan relationship. So nobody aboard the ship decides to mutiny over this ridiculous and unproductive order. The idea is not only implausible, it is just straight up stupid. However, there is some backstory to this. Per the Countdown companion comic book, it states that Romulan crew was captured by Klingons during this time. And during this time, they were imprisoned on Rura Penthi. Yes. The same Rura Penthi from Trek 6. The same one that Chekhov said it was known as the aliens' graveyard. The same one that Scotty said, better kill them now and get it over with. The exact same one, but unlike Trek 6, where the Shat and Bones were only on it for a month at most, the Romulans were there for 25 fucking years.
Get the fuck out of here.
So if the Romulan crew was on Rura Penthi during all that time, you probably want to know what happened to their ship with its future tech and Borg-enhanced weaponry. Apparently, it was just left in orbit of Rura Penthi for those entire 25 years, and the Klingons never even tried to cannibalize the ship. The Klingons are a civilization that is discovered faster than light travel. That is a feat of intelligence. Yet, they are too stupid to tow a captured ship to one of their shipyards to investigate it. Not to mention, leaving a ship orbit a penal colony is not a wise choice either. The idea is beyond stupid. It is devoid of logic, common sense, and basic plausibility.
I don't know why they keep hiring that fucking guy.
So finally, Nero and his crew managed to escape Rura Penthi and get back onto their ship. One would think after being on a frozen penal colony for 25 years, one's quality of life would be diminished. However, the Romulans look exactly the same as they did when they first arrived. And of course, Nero's entire crew will still obey and recognize his captaincy after 25 years of imprisonment. It makes no sense, but then again, what the fuck can we expect from these fucking dunce writers? Again, this idiocy has to happen. If the Klingons did what any normal civilization would do, it would be an end of story moment. However, the writing is poor and stupid, so we soldier on with the movie. As the Romulans escaped, it is stated in the movie that Uhura intercepted a transmission that she translated that a ship from a penal colony escaped, and destroyed 47 Klingon warbirds in the process. 47 fucking ships. 47 fucking Klingon ships. And yet, we are supposed to believe that the Romulans failed to take out one fucking rinky-dink research vessel.
Get the fuck out of here.
Issue 8. Lightning storm in space. As we hear on the comms on the Kelvin, Starfleet describes the spatial anomaly as a lightning storm in space. And what exactly is causing this to happen? It is a precursor of the singularity, which the Narda comes out of arriving at the current timeline. Since the Romulans arrived further back in time than Old Spock, they waited the 25 years. When Spock arrived, his ship arrived through a singularity as well, which caused a lightning storm in space again. The singularity that Spock comes through is the exact same one in location as the one Nero came through. We know the singularity was created to destroy the supernova, which is located in Romulan space. For this movie, if Romulus is located in the Beta Quadrant, and the supernova was inside the neutral zone, what the hell was the Kelvin doing there in the first place? But I digress. Being the singularity is in Beta Quadrant, and Vulcan is in Alpha Quadrant, why would the lightning storm in space anomaly be linked to Vulcan light years away? It makes absolutely no sense, but we already know the reason. If there is no lightning storm anomaly to report, Kirk does not tie it back to the Kelvin, and he does not warn Pike, and we get an end of story moment. So once again, the writers found themselves painted into a corner and just made it up. None of this shit is remotely consistent. I wonder at this point, do the writers even care? Does anybody care as this shit made it to film? All we needed was one guy at Paramount to step up and tell these no-talent fucks the following.
Where did you learn your trade, you stupid fucking cunt, you idiot? I don't care whose nephew you are, who you know, whose dick you're sucking on, you're going out.
Had someone had the balls to step up and put an end to this shit before it even began, then maybe we could have had quality Trek material instead of the fallout we still have to endure from this shit. Issue 9. nuSpock's fallacious logic. In Trek 6, Spock quotes Sherlock Holmes. In this movie, nuSpock quotes Trek 6, because the dynamic dunces don't read. He deduces because creating an artificial black hole is not currently technologically possible to his knowledge, therefore it means that the Romulans are from the future, as he postulates it is possible for it to be conceived in the future. How stupid is that? If the Federation witnessed Borg nanotechnology, but did not know the origin of it, based off of this logic, they would have assumed the tech came from the future. To be fair to Trek 6, this quote was used to theorize that a Klingon bird of prey can fire while cloaked. It was already established that Klingons had cloaking technology, and it is completely plausible the Klingons would research it further to be able to fire while cloaked. It is all within the realm of plausibility. In regards to this movie, the deductive reasoning is completely absent, and the conclusion is at best, pulled out of nuSpock's ass.
You're not very bright, are you?
Issue 10. Pike captured for Earth's defense codes. In the movie, Nero delays the order to fire the finishing blows on the Enterprise. Why? Because he recognizes it being the ship Spock served on. Once again, an end-of-story moment prevented by sheer dumb luck. Anyway, Pike complies with Nero's demands and comes aboard the Narda, where he is then interrogated. Is he interrogated for the tactical locations of the Federation fleet? No. He is interrogated for Earth's defense codes. Why? Once he leaves the ship, another officer is automatically assigned as acting captain. Thus, his ship command codes are nullified until the acting captain is relieved. However, in this case, this is far more retarded than the example I just presented. Why would a captain, or even an admiral that is outside of the Terran system, be given the defense codes? If any officer is given the codes, then any captain can go rogue against Earth. Why would the Federation even humor that possibility? How fucking stupid is that? And of course, being that nuSpock relayed the information that Pike has been captured, even if he did have the defense codes, Starfleet must have deactivated his authorizations on the spot. Let me give you a real-world example. You work at a company, and have access to work email, and the company database. You are also assigned an ID keycard that grants you access to the offices. Assuming you get fired. Does your ID keycard still grant you access to the offices? Do you still have access to your email and the company database? Of course not. So how the fuck does this even make sense? How fucking stupid are these writers? The idiocy is truly off the charts, and at this point in the review, we are only halfway through the movie. And just to be clear, Pike did have the defense codes, and he was tortured to extract that information, and Starfleet did not nullify his defense codes. Stupidity proven.
I told you.
Fucking hell.
Issue 11. nuSpock jettisons Kirk. After Pike's capture and the Narda departs, acting Captain Spock and acting First Officer Kirk get into a verbal sparring match over their next course of action. nuSpock orders security to remove Kirk from the bridge, and he physically fights off the guards to be incapacitated by nuSpock's nerve pinch. His orders: get him off the ship. What the fuck? Not confine him to quarters, or put him in the brig. He says get him off the ship.
What the hell? What the fuck is going on there?
Why is he jettisoning him off the ship, and why does he waste a life pod in doing so when he could have just beamed him down to the planet's surface? None of this makes any sense. It is understandable for nuSpock to have the guards remove him from the bridge and have him confined to quarters or even the brig. However, to have him removed from the ship is complete bullshit. Kirk is not a risk to the ship. Yet, this stupid action must happen in order for the movie to have its intended outcome. To be continued. Issue 12. Supernova threaten the entire galaxy. According to Old Spock, in the future, a star goes supernova, which threatens the entire galaxy. Not a solar system, or even a whole quadrant of space, but the entire fucking galaxy. This supernova destroys Romulus, which is the reason why Nero is so pissed off at Spock. Earth is part of the Milky Way galaxy. It is estimated there are between 100 to 400 billion stars within our galaxy alone. Of course, stars within our galaxy have gone nova and supernova. Is one star out of billions going to threaten the entire fucking galaxy? Also, it is estimated the Milky Way is approximately 87,400 light-years in diameter, meaning even at warp 10, it would still take 8,740 years to get from one end to the other. Therefore, using basic logic, Vulcans, Klingons, Romulans, Andorians, and every other race from Star Trek hail from the Milky Way galaxy. So if the entire galaxy is threatened, shouldn't the threat be taken up by every single civilization in the galaxy? This is so fucking stupid. Could the idiot writers have just said, the Romulan system was at risk from being destroyed? Yes, and that would be completely plausible. However, These writers are fucking idiots trying to make everything grander than it needs to be.
I don't know why you keep hiring that fucking guy.
Issue 13. Kirk on Hoth. The planet he is on is Delta Vega, but not the Delta Vega from TOS. The idiot writers just liked the name and wanted to use it. As much as it sounds like I'm just making this shit up as I go, it is a fact. Anyway, Kirk awakens in a life pod that tells him to wait for help, as danger is detected and assistance is on the way with a Federation outpost about 14 kilometers away. First of all, why wasn't he just beamed to the outpost directly? It would have preserved a life pod and still accomplished the goal nuSpock wanted. Anyway, if Kirk does what the life pod tells him and awaits assistance, it would be another end of story moment, as nobody was looking for him. Of course, the rebellious Kirk exits the pod and begins trekking his way toward the outpost, when he sees a big alien dog approaching him. Like an idiot, he stands there watching it approach him when suddenly, a bigger creature breaks out from under the ice, snatching the big dog in its mouth. Instead of eating it, it flings it away and begins chasing Kirk. Why? That dog was a bigger meal than Kirk. I was told the creature acted this way because of territoriality. It is a predator, and it is protecting its claimed hunting grounds. Even if that were true, do you believe that creature perceives Kirk being a rival predator? If you do, why? The creature is about 10 times the size of a human. Anyway, it chases Kirk down a rocky hill, and into a cave. The entire action sequence is pointless and stupid. However, because Kirk meets somebody in the cave, apparently, this stupid chase had to happen. Issue 14. Spock on Hoth. That's right. Spock from the future is in that cave and saves Kirk from getting eaten. What are the chances? How does Spock scare off the creature? With a torch. That's right. Old Spock just happened to find some dry firewood and tinder to create a fire on an ice planet. What are the chances? So why is he there? Spock exposits who Nero is and why they are there. He was trying to prevent the supernova from threatening the entire galaxy, but was too late to save Romulus, and both Nero and Spock were sucked into the singularity. Because he failed to save Romulus, Nero holds Spock personally at fault not just for the failure of saving his planet, but also for the death of his wife and his unborn child on the planet. However, Nero knew Romulus was in peril, and there was a possibility that the planet could be destroyed. So instead of evacuating his wife, he does nothing. So when she dies, he blames Spock. What a sniveling, petulant and passive bitch Nero is. Instead of taking the onus of doing his own due diligence, he chooses to play the victim, like so many petulant and useless fucks in our society. Fuck that guy, but I digress. Why is Spock on Hoth? Because Nero said his punishment was to be like his and witness his own homeworld perish. However, he never said where he was to witness it. He captures him, and instead of allowing him to have a front row seat and watch on the bridge with him, so Nero can relish the anguish and despair of Spock firsthand, he doesn't do shit, and just beams him off his ship. In the movie Taken, Liam Neeson says to his daughter's kidnappers, "I will look for you, I will find you, and I will kill you." In this case, Nero says to Spock, "I will wait for you, I will capture you, and then I will let you go unharmed."
Fucking hell.
Another reason I heard on why this is not a meeting due to chance, was because they are Kirk and Spock. They are destined to be together and be friends. However, destiny does not make an implausible encounter plausible. However, the reason is plain and simple. This encounter must happen or else it would have been an end of story moment. To be continued. Issue 15. The Formula. If your glass of whiskey is empty, now is the time for another pour. Kirk and Spock arrive at the Federation outpost and see that it is only manned by Scotty and Deep Roy. Being that Vulcan has just been destroyed, the two are completely oblivious to the fact. Anyway, Spock tells Kirk that he must go back to the Enterprise and retake command of the ship. He tells him a Starfleet regulation that if a captain is emotionally compromised, they can be relieved of duty. And how are they going to get there, you may ask? Conveniently, there is an old inoperable shuttle that happens to have transporters, with 2 transporter pads. Now why would a shuttle have transporters? Mind you, in TOS, the Galileo did not have transporters. No shuttle from TOS had transporters, because that would be redundant. The whole reason why shuttles were still needed was because some things could not be beamed to the ship. Once again, this is just basic common sense. As poor and convenient this writing is, we have not touched upon the truly retarded part yet. As said, Kirk needs to get back to the Enterprise, but it is long gone by now. Of course they are way out of beaming range by now. However, this brings us to the formula that allows trans-warp beaming. Yes, that's right. For Spock, Scotty discovers it in the future. Present Scotty said he tried it, but it did not work, and Spock gives him the correct formula and inputs it into the transporter. So now, they have the ability to transport light years away. Now with that ability, it now renders cargo and transport ships moot. There is no need for ships to haul materials, personnel, and inventory, but rather just have their things beamed over and hopscotch from station to station. This canonical ability changes the entire landscape of the Trek universe moving forward. It is fucking stupid to say that two people can beam light years away, with only the power of an inoperable shuttle. To canonize this ability in Trek is beyond stupid. To say a person can beam from Earth to Vulcan without any excess drain on power is completely unbelievable even within Trek. Now, as stupid as this notion is, let us assume it can be done. Does Spock know where the Enterprise is? Does he know the speed it is traveling at? He does not know the schematics of the new Enterprise either. So even if they can beam light years away, he does not know the coordinates to beam him to the ship. Basically, Spock is just dropping his finger on a spot, and just hoping to hell when he initiates the transport, the Enterprise will be at that spot. It is complete and utter bullshit. It is not even remotely plausible. This movie truly has some of the dumbest fucking writing ever filmed. Time and time again, the dynamic dunces paint themselves into a corner, and the only way out is to jam a square peg into a round hole, and hope to hell nobody notices it. It is so fucking stupid, but then again, if it does not happen, it is an end of story moment. We are still not done with this issue yet. As I said, there are two transporter pads. So Kirk will take one, and who do you think should take the other one? Of course, it should be Spock. He is proof of what is happening, and is the best person that can resolve the situation with Nero. However, he does not go. Scotty volunteers. Why? Because he wants to go. So what? Without any reference to Beam 2, and without any signal from the Enterprise, not only are they beaming to a purely random coordinate, it is also what is known as a site-to-site transport. In TOS, personnel would always beam back to the ship via the transporter room. Only once in TOS did they do a site-to-site transport within the ship, due to the extreme danger of being partially beamed into a bulkhead. Being that Spock does not know the schematics of the new Enterprise, what are the chances neither of them will be partially beamed into a bulkhead? So let us summarize this bullshit. Two people can beam light years away with only the power of an inoperable shuttle, that has two transporters, for some reason. Without knowing the coordinates or the schematics of the Enterprise, Scotty and Kirk beam back unharmed in any way, and the person that should have been sent, did not go. The idiocy displayed in this one scene, is like making every wrong turn on a map, and still arriving at your destination. How the fuck does that make sense?
I don't know why you keep hiring that fucking guy.
Issue 16. Kirk, Redux. As I stated in the previous issue, all of that bullshit worked, and Kirk and Scotty are now back on the Enterprise. After another cringy slapstick routine, Kirk and Scotty make it to the bridge. Obviously, everybody is surprised, and if we use nuSpock's fallacious deductive reasoning, he should have come to the conclusion that Kirk got here using some kind of future tech, but I digress. As Old Spock told Kirk, he has to wrestle command away from nuSpock so he can gain it for himself. Being that his mother just recently died, and nuSpock failing to save her, Kirk goads Spock. He goads him until Kirk gets Spock to activate batshit crazy mode, just like he did back when he was just a fuck kid on Vulcan. The two get into a legit fight with nuSpock ragingly throwing haymakers, until finally grasping his neck with murderous intent. Let me remind you that this is not happening in a bar, but on a bridge of the flagship of the Federation, between the two highest-ranking officers on the ship. Also, they are not alone having this fist fight. The entire bridge crew, including security, are present, and what do you think they do? Nothing. Not a fucking thing. Nobody steps in to intervene and break up the fight. Bones is there and says and does all of jack shit, while girlfriend Uhura is there and says and does all of fuck all. A bridge crew of Starfleet officers and security watch the two as if this was a schoolyard fight. So what stops the fight, you might ask? Apparently, nuSpock's daddy was present on the bridge, and while watching, he too said jack shit, until he finally decides to call out to Spock. What the fuck were you waiting for, Pops? Spock, upon hearing his daddy call his name, regains composure and releases Kirk. Seriously, what the fuck just happened? Why are Starfleet officers so fucking petulant? Why are Starfleet officers so fucking passive? When did Vulcans go fucking batshit crazy? None of this makes any fucking sense. Nevertheless, all of this bullshit works, and nuSpock relieves himself of command. That's right, Kirk does not relieve him citing regulations, but Spock relieves himself. How fucking stupid is that? At this point, we are about 70% into the movie. Do you remember the things that had to happen in order to prevent an end of story moment? Well, we are now at the point of the movie to reap the idiocy that has been sown. If Sulu did not replace the normally assigned helmsman, and if he was not Asian, he would have jumped to warp along with the fleet, but, thankfully he did replace a competent helmsman. Fucking racist filmmakers. If Pike does not assign Kirk as acting first officer, everything he has done to get to this point would be pointless, as he would not be able to take command of the ship and mission and the Enterprise rendezvous with the fleet and Earth is destroyed. If nuSpock does not jettison Kirk, which defies normal procedures and regulations, he does not meet Old Spock to give him the lowdown on Nero, and the Enterprise rendezvous with the fleet in the Laurentian system and Earth is destroyed. If Nero does not beam Spock down to Hoth, and rather pops a cap in his skull, like a normal pissed-off vengeance-seeking asshole playing the victim card, Kirk is eaten by some creature, and the Enterprise rendezvous with the fleet and Earth is destroyed. If Spock's daddy was not on the bridge for some pointless reason, at that very moment, Kirk dies, and Spock goes to the brig, and the ship rendezvous with the fleet, and Earth is destroyed. If one of these implausible events fail to happen, it is an end-of-story moment. You can see the story is as flimsy as a house of cards, and yet there is still more idiotic bullshit remaining.
Fucking hell.
Issue 17. nuSpock joins the away mission. An unspecified amount of time passes between Kirk gaining command of the ship, and the time they begin their away mission. It could be 5 minutes, and it could be an hour. However much time has elapsed, Kirk and the bridge crew formulate a plan to stop Nero. During this time, Spock, who previously relieved himself of command, returns to the bridge. He corroborates Chekhov's calculations and suggests that he should be the one to undertake the away mission. What the fuck? So during this short break, Spock has regained his composure to resume active duty. So if he can resume active duty, why is Kirk still acting captain? That makes no sense. Let us assume Spock has a change of heart, and believes this is the correct course of action. What changed his mind? What logical fact or rationale tells him this is the correct thing to do, rather than rendezvousing with the fleet? Nothing. There is no logical reasoning for it to be the best choice, as he has no facts at all. Of course, if he is able to resume active duty, he would continue his course of action and rendezvous with the fleet. If he is not able to resume active duty, he would not be cleared to go on the away mission. Once again, nothing makes sense. Spock returns to active duty demoted. Why? Because again, this has to happen or else it will be an end-of-story moment. Kirk was not going to ask him to come, nor did anybody know he was going to be available to resume active duty within that time frame. Spock being able to go, and actually going is sheer dumb luck. Issue 18. Kirk's brilliant plan. So the bridge crew devise a plan of warping into the rings of Saturn, and the magnetic field of the Moon Titan will mask their presence. From there, they can beam aboard Nero's ship. Being that they are beaming from Saturn to Earth, means this is using transwarp beaming once again. Being that Scotty beams them aboard, nobody knows the schematics of the ship, so once again, this is another site-to-site transport. How does he know where to beam them? He doesn't, but again, I digress. So exactly what is Kirk's plan? Yes, he believes Earth is endangered and they must stop Nero to prevent the catastrophe from happening, but how is he going to accomplish this goal? Who the fuck knows? His plan, if he had one, is completely unstated. Just him and Spock beam aboard hoping just the two of them can cause enough havoc to prevent the destruction of Earth. In a nutshell, beam over, and blow shit up. That is the essence of his fucking plan. Once again, no display of command prowess, no display of resourcefulness. All we get is continual idiotic dumb luck. So at the very least, let us go through the dumb luck that happens. When Nero left Vulcan, where did he go? We can only assume he made a beeline towards Earth. During this time, where did the Enterprise go? To the Laurentian system. So as the movie shows, Nero gets there first. Yet this time, it takes him long enough to deploy the drill and activate it, just after Kirk and Spock beam aboard. It's a good thing Uhura's unprofessional fraternizing didn't cost them their beaming window. Stunning a Romulan, Spock mind-mealds with him to find the locations of Pike and the jellyfish. How convenient Spock was on the away mission. Upon arriving at the jellyfish, Kirk and Spock find it unguarded and wide open. The entire ship received the intruder alert, and the jellyfish is where the red matter is stored, and the Romulans fail to guard and secure it. Such dumb luck. Being that the jellyfish is old Spock's ship, how convenient it was coded to his DNA, and the facial recognition accounted for him being decades younger as well. Such dumb luck Spock was able to make it on the mission. Getting beaten up by Nero, and in his clutches of death, Nero leaves Kirk to be handled by another Romulan, and he does the exact same dumb thing rather than just popping a cap in his skull. That is double dumb luck. So in the end, the entire mission is successful, and Kirk saves Earth not because he was resourceful. Not because of his unswerving command ability. No. It is due to sheer dumb fucking luck. Issue 19. Old Spock does nothing. The one thing I did not have an issue with, was the idea of creating an alternate timeline. By doing this, the writers could preserve all of the canon, while telling brand new stories. That makes sense, however, what they failed to do was keep everything the same prior to the incursion. They moved Delta Vega. They made Vulcans go batshit crazy. They made the entire Trek universe extremely small, being able to warp to Vulcan in less than an hour. Then again, the writers are shit. When nuSpock sees Old Spock is now stuck in this timeline, with Romulus destroyed in his timeline and Vulcan now destroyed in the current one. Billions of lives lost, and as he stated in the movie, he says it is all his fault. Being that he has the knowledge to construct the jellyfish, he factually knows how to time travel, and can still save both planets, by destroying Nero when he arrives, and warn Romulus of the impending supernova. Given the tools and tech he has at his disposal, the entire dilemma can be repaired. Yet, he does nothing. That is not within character, and instead when it comes to all of the Romulans that he feels at fault from dying, and all of the Vulcans from this timeline, Spock just says,
Fuck him.
You fucking asshole.
Issue 20. Cadet to Captain. Back at Starfleet Academy, I assume about a month has passed, and if you remember, Kirk was still in his third year. The Academy is assembled and Captain. That's right. Captain Kirk is being awarded an unknown commendation for his deeds in saving Earth. That's right. Kirk was already promoted to rank of Captain, from the rank of Cadet after a single mission's worth of experience. Now, some might say there is an unspecified amount of time that has elapsed, and he went on other missions since then. However, what is he being honored for? He's getting a commendation for the actions with the Romulans. Are they going to delay that commendation for years? Of course not. Even if that were true, it's still absurdly stupid. Nobody in Trek, or in history has ever been promoted from a cadet to a captain. I have never heard of anything where a person skipped over a single rank. This issue is so fucking absurd, and yet back on the IMDb message boards, I still got the dopes and dunces defending this. They said it was like Voyager, when Janeway promoted members of the Maquis. That is an apples to oranges comparison. Janeway's promotions were field promotions due to limited staff and political reasons. These do not apply to Kirk, and I would even go out on a limb and say Janeway would not promote Neelix to first officer. Clearly, the dunce writers wanted to have the TOS bridge crew all set for the next movie. At this point, I don't think they gave a shit anymore, that is if they even gave a shit at all. And that is it. Those are my 20 issues I have with this movie. Let me give you a few things that were not issues, but I did not approve of. The Enterprise. The design looks like shit. The nacelles are too close to each other, and I don't like the deflector dish looking thrusters in the back. The iBridge. That design looks like shit too. How is it practical to have everything look so bright with glare, when crew members need to concentrate on their consoles and displays? Engineering. Running around a bunch of piping is your engineering section. Spock and Uhura. How does this relationship work? Did Spock say get your ass over here and pawn farm me bitch? Or did she say, I don't want to play chess, I want you to fucking pawn farm me? Both seem like unlikely scenarios. The overall unprofessionalism. Smugness and petulant attitudes are rampant in this movie. Constant dick measuring dialogue, and in a professional capacity, Uhura talking about how good her blowjobs are is cringy juvenile bullshit that has no place in a Trek movie, or episode.
San Francisco cocksucker.
The music. It sucks. Michael Giacchino is such an overrated composer. All he can write is an opening, and he plays that opening over and over and over again. Pixar's Inside Out is a pretty good movie, but even my daughter doesn't want to watch it anymore specifically because the music is so fucking repetitive. The music from the Batman is just Batman's theme played over and over and over again. Nothing else is memorable and it gets old real fast.
I don't know why you keep hiring that fucking guy.
Last but not least, let us discuss the biggest reason for getting this fucked up movie. J.J. Abrams. He moved in and brought his production company, Fucked Up Robot. Moved in his idiot hack cronies, Damon Lindelof and the Dynamic Dunces. And of course brought in his quote, vision, to the screen. As he said himself, he was a Star Wars kid, and never was a Star Trek fan. So by his own admission, he was the wrong person for the job, but wanted the IP to be under his production company. Although without a writing credit, I am sure he had specific action set pieces he wanted to show, and gave the ideas to the dynamic dunces to work them into the story. The space jump onto the drill was a horribly shot set piece. Constant shaky cam, and quick cut after quick cut editing, shows the set piece planning was weak. When you look at The Force Awakens, that he co-wrote, you can see the same idiotic dialogue, the same pointless action set pieces, and the same ADHD pacing. Constant idiotic slapstick sequences, and ADHD running around, instead of moments of tension and implied urgency. Instead of building the plot to a dramatic conclusion, he just gives us stupid, and more stupid. JJ has always been a shitty fucking director and a shitty fucking writer getting his foot in door from his nepotistic dad. So in conclusion, no, I didn't like this movie. If you did, that's fine. I have nothing against anybody for liking a movie for whatever reason, and one needs not defend the logic of an obviously stupid movie to preserve the reason why they like it. Meathead movies like Fast and Furious need no explanation at all. The explanation isn't important because it is all spectacle. For me, I do not see a Fast movie on the same wavelength as a Star Trek movie, which is why I do not watch Fast movies. It is disappointing to see Star Trek devolved into what it has become. Cringy millennial dialogue. No chain of command. ADHD pacing. Social justice warrioring. Zero exploration. No moral dilemmas. Mary Sue's and etc. If you thought this movie was stupid, wait until you hear my review of Star Trek Into Darkness. Until then, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the review. Take care and have a nice day.